thanks very much, Prime Minister, but no thanks, because he doesn't really get to the heart of the matter. Let's talk to Matthew Torbitt, former Labour advisor, who's up in Manchester today. Matthew, very good morning to you.
Good morning, mate.
Just as I said, you know, where is Keir Starmer? He puts a tweet out to make me look idiotic. But there we are. But it's only a tweet. He hasn't really come out in public since last Friday. And, you know, you sometimes get the feeling that he's kind of hiding, you know, because he comes out and talks when he wants to, sometimes about nothing particularly important. What do you think the problem is with Keir Starmer?
God, how long have you got? No, I think he's a man of very little politics. Keir Starmer was obviously famously a career civil servant. I think we were talking last night, there's another former Labour advisor here, and he said what he feels is that he thinks he's still at the DPP, and you are essentially CEO of the company, and what you say goes, and if you say something, everyone's got to go along with it. I think he forgets that every MP's got their own mandate, their own constituency, their own priorities, and therefore, you know, people will choose to do what they wish. And I think the lack of authenticity and the lack of, I think, personability, not reaching out to those on the backbenches and not making them feel important or wanted, has cost him a lot of you know, things like the welfare bill and the debacle over that, and the fact they're going to revisit and think it's going to have any sort of different result tells me how sort of the levels of delusion that's going on there at the moment.
Yeah, and he's got this habit of sort of ignoring things in the hopes that it will go away. I mean, for example, the big story on the front page of this morning, on the front page of the Times, he's written a piece in the Times today, is all about these protests, stroke demonstrations, stroke celebrations that are going to be going on today on the second anniversary of October the 7th, up and down the country, in campuses. It may well be some on the streets of London, the streets of Manchester possibly as well. And he hasn't addressed that at all in this tweet. I mean, he's talked a lot about priorities in the Middle East. He's talked a lot about how terrible it is for the Jewish community in Britain. This is the second anniversary of October 7th. But he doesn't mention how awful it's going to look for Britain if this is what we are known as, a country that actually is celebrating the deaths of, you know, over 1,000 people 2 years ago.
I think it's strange, this sort of stuff, and I'd actually include Shabana Mahmood in it. What I've noticed over the last week is the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister encouraging people to not go on marches and say, you know, think of the Jewish community who are hurting at the moment, and then going, we can't really do anything about it, and the Met basically doing the same, going, well, it's up to the government really, it's not really up to us. And I think there's a lot of buck passing. I don't want to sort of see the police be politicised and freedom of speech not happen, but I remember thinking what would have been quite British is for people to sort of maybe have a banner at the front of the march and say, look, we stand with the Palestinian people, it's awful what's going on there, but we also stand with the Jewish community in this country. It's nothing against you. This is, you know, purely Benjamin Netanyahu, really. And it's a shame that sort of stuff hasn't happened.
Yeah, but unfortunately that's becoming more and more of a blurred issue, isn't it? Because more and more Jewish people tell me in this country that they now feel part of this protest movement and the angst of the protest movement. It used to be just about Benjamin Netanyahu and used to be just about Israel, but now it appears to have included Jewish people in this country.
If so, that's wrong. I think, you know, people are entitled to their views, you're entitled to disagree with them. That doesn't mean you persecute them. If a Jewish person in this country believes in what the state of Israel is doing, you're entitled to debate the issues and disagree with them. But I think to sort of be celebrating or glorifying anything to do with October the 7th isn't a good look. And I don't know whether sometimes these movements, you know, they might have good intentions, but there's a lot of bad faith actors involved. And that's why, you know, I totally disagree with what's going on in Palestine at the moment, but I've never felt able to join these marches because of the sort of some of the, to put it bluntly, lunatics that are involved in them.
Well, that's right. I mean, Matthew Said wrote a great piece in the Sunday Times just the other day. He went down to see what was going on at one of the marches in London on Saturday, and he found a lot of people there who just wanted to see the end of Israel. They just didn't want the two-state solution. They were like, we'll be doing this until Israel's wiped off the face of the map, which, let's face it, is the Hamas position. It's not the moderate Palestinian position at all.
No, and also it's also not the position of certain far-right individuals in the Israeli government. So you can't sort of go, well, we don't like Itamar Ben-Gvir and Minister Smodrich. However, we're going to have basically the same position because you're therefore as bad as them. So ideologically and intellectually, it doesn't really make much sense, and you're not going to move forward with a solution if that's the case.
No, but the problem is that we as a country need to move forward from having a pro-Palestine march, I think, every single weekend. I think most people that I talk to anyway who are reasonably reasonably sort of fair-minded, understand that there are people who feel strongly about it, but we don't need to have one every single week for the rest of time. And I think surely Keir Starmer needs to put his foot down and say, look, I know that Shabana Mahmood is looking at doing something about it, but they're not going to do anything about it today, and they're not going to do anything about it tomorrow, and I worry that they're not going to do anything about it ever.
I suppose also, I think it also, this is not to let Keir Starmer off the hook, but it comes down to the Met as well. I think if there are people, which we've seen in the past with banners, that are potentially on the wrong side of persecuting people as such and holding Jewish people for sort of blood libel against Palestinian people, then there needs to be arrest, doesn't there? You know, I've been on many a protest in my time. I've never felt the need to sort of write a placard saying death upon people or anything like that, no matter who it is. And I think if you start clearing out that sort of stuff, I maybe don't have as much of an issue with what's going on, but the longer that stuff like that happens and people are chanting or whatever it might be for the death of Israel and a one-state solution and whatever, what purpose does it really serve?
Yes, and how much longer do we have to put up with it as individual citizens of this country? Because I think the other thing that really slightly jars me is that London has become this kind of, you know, centre for just protest every single bleeding weekend. You know, I'm not generally here at the weekends, and that's one of the reasons why, because you can't feel free to walk through it without some bloody protest going on. I mean, I'd rather like to see us returning to a kind of state of calm where not everybody's protesting all the time about something.
I would love a state of calm, and I'm not going to knock people for protesting because I've been on protests in London in my time. But I think it depends on the protest. My brother texted me the other day, actually. He's not sort of very political, but he'll watch the news, and he said the problem is with a lot of these marches, it's the same sort of people. They're normally quite middle class, and because their life is okay, their priority is things abroad. And actually, there's many things over here I would rather be protesting about, because here is a current mess at the moment. And he said this is why people never get anywhere. It's the same types of people. They don't want to engage. You know, and that's sort of it. So I'm not going to knock people for protesting, but you know, it's normally the types of people that would put you off going anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Speaking of the types of people that put you off, let's have a look at Gary Neville. Here he was in 2022 telling us why we should all put our trust in Keir Starmer.
Get behind Keir Starmer. This is a serious politician, someone who's headed up a major department in the CPS, someone who is trustworthy and has integrity. All things that this current government don't have. Not only this current government damaging us in our country, our relationships with our partners in Europe and around the world are broken and shattered, and they've burned their bridges with our partners in Europe and around the world, and we need to rebuild our relationships, we need to rebuild our reputation, and that is not going to happen under a Conservative government.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I find Gary Neville tedious. I played that because this week he's got himself into a whole heap of trouble by blaming white, angry, middle-class men for everything.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this. I like Gary Neville. I'll go out on a limb on that. On this sort of stuff, you know, listen, he's entitled to his beliefs. I think the thing is with this sort of stuff, I was talking to a taxi driver.
Well, he was wrong about Starmer being a man of integrity, though, wasn't he?
Oh, on that clip? Well, no. Well, he's had the wool pulled over his eyes like a lot of other people then, hasn't he? There's not a lot you can do about that. I think as a businessman, he was probably fed up with the state of the country, hoping it would be better, and it's not turned out well for him. But I think the thing that I find interesting, they keep picking on white men. And there's obviously, you know, the majority of people in this country are still white people. But the people that hate this sort of illegal immigration stuff are first and second generation immigrants. You speak to them and they hate it because they came over, paid their dues, paid their visa fees and worked hard, and what they see at the moment is a perception that people are skipping the queue ahead of them and pretending to be refugees and chucking their passports in the channel, and they hate it because then they get tarred with the same brush by certainly people that I would say racists who just lump people in, so they totally hate it. It's not just white people, it's absolutely immigrants that have come to this country and done good work.
Exactly right. You were at Labour Party conference last week. What did you make of what's going on inside the sort of the brains of it, if you like? You know, the whole the Morgan McSweeney scandal. You know, Keir Starmer being circled by all sorts of rivals who might want to take over. Andy Burnham making a move, then not making a move. Lucy Powell thinking about becoming the deputy leader. All of those things that are going on. What do you think is going to happen in the coming months?
I think it's going to be a rough 12 months. I think the budget will be something people on the right of the party are preparing for, but ready to move. I've heard lots of rumours that people within the cabinet are willing to move against Keir Starmer if the budget falls flat, which I think may well happen. It's going to be quite controversial. There will be taxes no doubt raised. Lucy Powell will almost certainly become deputy leader. I've encouraged her that actually if she wants to try and change the direction of the party, she should see this as not a role that doesn't mean anything. She could actually become leader of the backbenches, leader of the rebels, and begin to negotiate with Number 10 about what we really want. Andy Burnham's obviously gone a little bit too early. I was a little bit disappointed by his comments, rowing back in behind Starmer and looking like a bit of a flip-flop. I have no doubt that when we lose Wales and Scotland in May, the conversation will return to Andy Burnham and who Labour turn to next. But I have no doubt that I don't think Keir Starmer survives next conference. I don't think he'll be there next conference, and I think there will be movement after the local elections in May, and including Wales and Scotland.
Yeah, if he moves that far. And what do you make of the Tory party conference? You're up there at the moment. It looks a bit grim, to be honest.
It's really quiet. I've actually been once before. I was telling someone last night we actually snuck Barry Gardiner into the 1922 party a couple of years ago, pretending he was Foreign Secretary. So that, no, really, because he had a private members bill and we wanted to see cabinet ministers and we had this idea, so we snuck him in. And I think to talk about the level of respect that the leader's currently not commanding, the 1922 is normally a packed party, all the MPs, lots of journalists, lots of drinks flowing. There's no money here at the moment because nobody wishes to donate, so you had 4 drinks to choose from. And when Kemi Badenoch was making her speech, she said part way through, what I can promise you is that I'm trying my best. And she actually got heckled in the 1922 party, and I won't say who. Somebody said, yes, that's the problem. So that sort of tells you the real, she doesn't command any respect at the moment. Everyone's queuing around the block to see Robert Jenrick speak, and that seems totally obvious as well, really, what's going to happen there.
Yeah, indeed. Well, that's interesting information, because we're talking to Robert Jenrick later, so I'll ask him about that. Matthew, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Matthew Torbitt, former Labour advisor at Tory Party Conference up in Manchester. If you want to see what it's actually like, here's a little window into what they're doing. Here's Kemi Badenoch at a party up there.
Sweet Caroline, of the books, the times never seem so good. So good, so good, so good.
Oh dear. They've all got obsessed with waving flags around, haven't they? What's going on with them? You can't be seen at a political conference now without a flag. Do you know where I didn't really see that many of them? I was at the Reform Party conference. They weren't waving flags every 5 minutes, and they're the ones that are meant to be in trouble for doing it. The angry middle-aged white men. They weren't waving them. Sorry, Lib Dems were doing it, then Labour, now the Tories. Unbelievable.